Chairman Fox.
Here.
Mr. Meza.
Here.
Mr. Napier.
Here.
Mr. Parsons.
Here.
Mr. Stanley.
Here.
Mr. Witten, you said is coming. Thank you. And Mr. Daly.
Here.
Thank you.
Very well. Item number 2 is the EDA update. Mr. Parsons.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just, I had just a couple quick clarifications on the agenda.
Okay.
Questions, if that's okay?
Yes.
First off, because I added a couple of these, but number 5 and number 7, I think it might be a standing agenda item. However, it might be evolving depending on the information that comes forward from the EDA around property solvency and stuff like that. But we may not talk about it today because we might not have all the information for it. So I did ask for it to be a standing agenda item, but we might not have the information to talk about it. We can gloss over that if need be today.
So you're asking to remove those, or?
We can keep them there depending on, I haven't had a chance to talk with Doug Parsons, number 2, but I don't think we're going to have all the information tonight to really, so I just don't want to spend 20 minutes discussing something that's going to be a circular conversation if all the information isn't
On
there.
both of them?
Yeah. And then I apologize, I was not at the last county town EDA meeting, but I know that there was some side conversations before about including an EDA board member in this meeting. So my assumption is with Ed being here tonight that was something that was voted on, and there's an EDA board member now as part of this council as well, group as well. Is that correct?
I was not there either, Jake, so I'm with you.
Okay.
What's that now?
I was not at that meeting.
Okay.
We were the 2 absent.
So I guess my question is, did the county, town, and EDA amend the original committee to make sure that there's a board member at this committee meeting?
That was our understanding.
Oh, you weren't there either.
I was
Oh, you
there
were.
and I listened. We understood, that's why I'm here, is that we understood that EDA should appoint a member too, and Mr. Brown is my alternate,
Okay.
so that one of us would be there.
That was my understanding.
Okay, perfect. That I assumed that's why you were here. I just wasn't there, and so I wanted that to be reflected in the minutes of being here as well.
Okay.
Thank
Very
you.
well. Okay. Now can we move on?
Sure.
Okay. Number 2 is the EDA update. Mr. Parsons.
Okay, on our properties, 404 Fairground Road, we've been marketing that property, and we have a fully signed and executed letter of intent to sell that property, and we're working with the client on a sales contract. Our 506, 514 East Main Street properties, the old Stokes Mart apartment building, those are still on the market. We thought we had a buyer, but they backed out, so we will continue to market those 2 properties. 426 Ball Drive, we have a very interested party that we are in negotiations with at this time. We also have, I guess under prospect update moving forward there, a bit redundant, we obviously have prospects for the properties, but we also have another prospect from the State Development Office that's interested in a privately owned building in the county, and the client has submitted some questions which we posed to the realtor and the building owner. So we made the first cut, and we're in the second round right now, so hopefully we'll be able to move that project forward as well. The audit update.
May I ask
Go ahead.
you first?
All right, 2 questions. On the 404 Fairground, are we at a point yet that we can talk about what type of use, or is that still, you're still waiting to see if you have a contract in hand on that one?
We'd like to get a contract
That's
in
fine.
hand on that one, and the client has asked that we keep things confidential
Okay.
until we have a fully executed sales
Number
agreement.
2, and it just, the town and county jointly own property at McKay Springs, and the county owns a piece there. We had somebody who's been talking to our planning department. We are meeting with them tomorrow. So that property is being held by the EDA for us, and I'm hopeful that, we'll see after tomorrow if that interest is peaking, and they'll actually make another. They made an offer previously, but there's some issues, lowball, some issues with the offer, so we're going to be talking to them, and hopefully the next meeting we can give an update on that as well.
My question, Doug, was, you may have already covered this last time, and I apologize if it's redundant, but is there a I guess I can't think of the right words, but I think the easiest way to ask it is there a particular strategy that's being adopted by the EDA to, and again, maybe this isn't the right word, but to liquidate properties or to pick particular properties that they're going to be sold, and for what reasons? Is there a particular strategy that the EDA has adopted in doing that in the selection process?
Yes, and I think our number, if I had a magic wand, the ones I'd want to sell first and foremost would be the Stokes Market and the apartment building. Those are properties that an EDA has no business owning, in my opinion.
That's right, you mentioned that last time. Okay.
404 Fairground Road is a fine property, but again, it's really not quite in the bailiwick of what an EDA should be owning and marketing in an effort to create new jobs and bring in new tax base. So I think those are the main ones. 426 Ball Drive is exactly the kind of property an EDA should own, and I'm glad that we do. But of course, the idea there is to bring in a major employer or somebody who's going to make a significant contribution to the tax base. And so we're actively marketing that property, and we have the ability to be a little discerning about who we sell it to and make sure that we get the most bang for our buck there as far as continuing tax revenue and employment. So.
Is that the large building?
Yeah, 76,000 square foot.
I might add just for a second, the Blaw Drive property, it's very important to us that that be something that it's for its intended use. Some type that's gonna help develop, number one, jobs, and number two, the tax base. That it's not just, as opposed to the others, the Stokes building, we just wanna sell it. As opposed, and the Blaw Drive, we wanna make sure, we'd rather hold that if necessary longer to get a good product for you.
So the strategy is to get, I know I'm making this overly simple, but I think this will be important as part of one of the final products that comes out of this committee. Get out of the properties, get rid of the properties that we should not be holding first and foremost.
Certainly.
Identify the most strategic properties that we have of value to market for companies to come into the area. And we're willing to sit on a little bit longer to get that right fit for the properties. That's the two categories. Is there a third category of properties we're just trying to get rid of, properties we're trying to get rid of in order to just recoup monies as well?
There's not that
Ball
many.
property, for example, we're not going to just get rid of it to recoup monies today because we're going to hold on to it to get the right fit. Does that make sense?
Stokes property and Fairground Drive, if it's a reasonable price, we want to sell them. Law Drive, we're concerned particularly about how it has to be a legitimate use, but we want to sell them. Law Drive, we're more concerned about how it's going to help develop jobs and the tax base because of the size and the investment
You would
on that.
probably lump, was it lots 4 and, you have 2 other parcels at Stevens that are vacant.
Yes.
You'd lump those in the same category as well.
Same thing.
Jobs,
Investment.
investment.
Jobs, investment. Same thing over at Happy Creek.
So what I was just trying to understand is the divestment of properties in order to maintain a level of solvency in the EDA. So it doesn't sound like it sounds like it's part and parcel of what you're doing, but not the main strategy behind it.
Correct.
It's not a desperate fire sale for all the properties. There's
That's a good way to say it.
sliding scale of priority or willingness to be, again, a bit more discerning. Certainly the lots and the Ball Drive building and the Happy Creek lots, we want to make, you can only sell them once, and we want to get the most impact that we can.
What's the possibility of leasing that building out? Or is that legal as far as the...
You could lease, but we've had some interest for leasing Ball. I think if you remember, Chairman Fox, originally when the EDA came to the board, they had a prospect that was looking to lease it for a few years and then be able to buy it, and their contracts fell through and the deal fell through. But we did that with the Schnabel building, the old North American Housing Building, now 55. The EDA, with our backing, bought it for a few years, leased it to Schnabel, and then Schnabel, once they got the financing in place, they were able to make the acquisition and took it completely over. In the meantime, when they were doing the lease, they paid a pilot fee, a payment in lieu of taxes that was equal to what the real estate tax was, so that the county was kind of made whole on the tax standpoint. So I think it can be done, it can be done favorably, depends on the, I guess, the industry situation and what their financial situation is at the time. Schnabel was trying to sell a property down in Dulles, and they said, we can't afford to take on the debt for 2 facilities until we sell the one, then we'll be willing to do the other.
Let's look at things on a case-by-case basis. Yes, sir.
Anything else more on the properties?
I think that's it on the properties and the prospects.
Okay,
Audit update, our accountants are finished reviewing the proposed adjusted journal entries on the asset side of the balance sheet that Sherry Becker did. And they are working on finishing up the adjusted entries for the debt and capital side of the balance sheet. They feel they have the microloan customers well in hand, and they feel they have the, what was the third thing? The, I'm drawing a blank. Let's see, microloans, adjusted journal entries. All the fair market valuations of all the properties. They feel they have that in hand too. We are hopeful that by September 27th, they'll have everything ready to go to Yount, Hyde, and Barber. For the audit, the board has to sign off on what they submit to Yount, Hyde, and Barber. And so we're hoping to do that on September 27th, and then get it to Yount, and then we're hoping to have the FY18 audit within 90 days after that.
So when you say audit, excuse me, that, you mean the internal audits, our staff?
The fiscal year 18 audit.
Yeah, but no, I mean the auditors. When you said the auditors were working on the journal entries.
I'm sorry, I meant to say
Carolyn.
accountants, yeah, Carolyn Stimmel and Heather Tweedy from Pottle and Wells.
So they're in-house and they're gonna get that to Yount Hyde.
Yeah. I'm
And
hoping
when
they'll
that
get-
goes to Yount Hyde, it's probably about 60 to 90 days before we
So
get.
that's
Hyde.
10/1, so it's October, November, December, hopefully by the end of the,
Yes, sir.
beginning to end of December, y'all should have your FY18 on it.
and will this audit tell us exactly where the EDA is now with the bottom line?
It'll tell you the end of 18, now, they're gonna have to turn right around and work on the 19 on it.
Yeah, and I would just assume do them right one after the other. Will it tell us where we're at? In as much as our accountants are able to reconstruct with accuracy what transpired over the last few years, given all that's happened.
Yeah, that's, I think that's my question.
It's
That's,
gonna be their best effort to represent what has happened. And, you know, they're going through and they're trying to pull out all the fraudulent transactions and deal with them as accountants do with their various entries and so forth.
and so you think that this will tell you whether you're solvent or not at the end?
well,
Is that a fair question?
That's a fair
it's an
question.
interesting question, sir. You know, we have cash,
Oh, okay.
but we're like the federal government. If somebody called the federal government and said, we want you to pay all your bills today, the federal government's in trouble. They can't do it. And we're in that type of a position where what we owe, our liabilities exceed our assets, but we have cash.
Okay.
And when we get this 18 audit, that should at least let us establish a baseline that we can do monthly balance sheets and determine where we are.
Okay.
And obviously, I think the goal is as you sell these other properties, to be able to pay down debt, outstanding debt, correct? Doug?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And the banks want you to do that as well, right?
They're pretty keen on it, yes, they are.
All right, I have a couple clarifying comments on that. So the audit that you're referring to is really an in-house cleaning up of your books. It's not really an audit of your books.
So two things. One of it is an internal, what we are doing, what our accountants are doing at the office to clean up our books. And then there will be a written audit outside from Yount Hyde, and that's what we will have in December.
So what our in-house folks are doing is preparing those 3 items, the fair market valuations, the microloan summary, and the proposed adjusted journal entries for Yount, Hyde, and Barber to do the actual FY18 audit. So What our folks are doing is the prep work for Yount to be able to do.
So they're not really doing an audit, they're just getting all the information about your guys' financials.
Yeah, they're trying to straighten things out enough for Yount to be able to do an audit. Yes, sir.
Is anything on that?
Yeah, a
Yes,
couple
okay,
more,
cool.
sorry.
Oh, no problem.
And here I say it goes quick and then I can't stay quiet. So, okay, I think that makes sense to me. But then you say, Mr. Daly, you guys have cash, EDA has cash, but that its liabilities exceed its assets. With all the properties combined, including your cash, its liabilities exceed its assets. So, but you don't have fair market values on all your properties yet to really know if that's the case.
No, we don't have all the information back. No, we do not.
So then, I just want to be clear, there's no way to say that, well, I think you are saying actually that your liabilities far outweigh your assets, including your cash, even without the fair market values of the properties, which could come in higher or lower than what you're determining today, right?
I'm just looking at the first page, there's $19.8 million. Y'all don't even have enough, nowhere near that in property value, so.
Yeah, we're at $41,009,000 and change in total debt. We have 1.8 million in the bank.
So I think that's really good. So I think what I'm getting at then is, what would be the plan to be able to get the EDA back to?
Solvency.
Yeah. So I think this is basically saying it's not solvent as of today. I think Mr. Daly put it eloquently, which is if all our loans were called today.
Oh, we'd be toast.
Yeah. Which I understand the business model. I mean, I understand that there's an ebb and flow there. But what I'm getting at is, what would be that plan? What is the EDA's plan to get this back to a normal operating level?
Well, obviously selling the properties and generate as much cash as we can. Again, especially those properties we shouldn't be owning in the first place as part of it. Recovering money through the civil suit, trying to recover as much of the taxpayers' money as possible.
But just through the property sales, is there an expected dollar amount that's going to get you? Do you see what I'm getting at? Like, I'm trying to figure out. So let's just say round numbers, 42 million in debt. We're going to sell property X, Y, and Z, and that's going to generate another $5 million of cash back to us. That's going to take us down to $37 million. Then from there, what do we do? Does that make sense?
Get the town to pay its 8.75 million of that is the police station. But it's uncollateralized, it's on your back right now.
Right.
So if we can work these.
That's part of what I'm asking is,
Work these off
so
on
that's the
those.
math. That's the math that adds up to getting EDA back to normal operating level. That's what I'm asking. Is there a plan that's already outlaid for that?
Well, it's gonna take these off one at a time to complete the transactions and move them off of this list.
Something that should be noted too, a lot of our debt is covered. So we have, you'll see on First Bank and Trust, the IT federal loan, that's covered by Mr. Tran's payment. So from a cash flow perspective, we're covered on that loan. And that's big, that's a pretty good size loan, and that's a huge payment. So thank goodness he's making his payments on time.
Oh, you're saying he is making those payments, and so
Yes.
it is
So-
payments. Okay.
I know it's on our books, and I'm not waffling or nothing, I'm just saying, that debt service is covered on
Sure.
that loan.
Yeah.
So, for now, and he's been making his payments faithfully.
And I think the town's a good example, if you want to use that one, Doug, with the police station. Town's waiting to take that debt off your books. I mean, that's not going to be a problem. I think it's just getting to that final number, but I think everybody knows that the second that happens, it's going to be off the EDA's books, right?
Right. And then,
And that's pretty much, that's all, everybody's agreed on the number. It's a question of what the interest is. And that, once that's resolved, and that's gonna require a meeting, probably, they suggested Monday, a meeting with the EDA, and they'll also have to include the county. Because somebody's gonna have to pay that difference in the interest. And it would have to be, we are the people who fund us, are the county. And so if you were to pay 1.5%, then we would have to rely on the county to help us subsidize the other 1.5%. Because that's what we pay.
Or include that in the lawsuit.
Well, I think it is in the lawsuit,
Yeah.
quite frankly.
So,
I think
yeah,
it
we
is
can
in the
come back from
lawsuit.
that,
There's
yeah.
a question in there. And I realize we can't talk about that, but I do think that's something we would all like to recover from people involved in the lawsuit. There's, everybody has a piece in there.
So between, it's gonna depend on what happens. If we can sell the Ball Drive building, that's $5.1 million of debt to get that off the books. The Stokes Market, that's not very much, that's $457,000 of debt, but that would save us around $3,500 a month between principal, interest, flood insurance, which is enormous, as you might imagine, and utilities. So
I think the last question I have along those lines, let's just say all those things come to fruition and we clean up these books a little bit. Would the EDA be positioned to get back in the business of purchasing properties with the collateral that it has with banks, or would it still be in a position where it's going to need, I would say it's not promissory notes or moral
Full faith and
obligations?
credit.
Yeah, moral obligations.
I think that's one of the long-term discussions that this committee needs to have,
Right.
is what role that the EDA should play in the acquisition of property, and how speculative, if you will, we should be. And I think that's an important question for this committee and the county and the town to come up to a recommendation with, and it goes back down to number 8.
That's a large part of what the EDA does, right?
Well,
buying properties?
we can facilitate and do a lot of things. We can help connect the property owner and a property purchaser. We can take a property that's
Oh,
available.
you're talking about if you want to buy a property, develop it.
If you're
Yeah,
saying
ready.
we
Okay,
want
I
to
understand what you're
buy
saying.
properties,
Yeah.
that's something I think we need to have some guidance from the town and the county as to how far they want to go and how much of a role the town wants to play in the long
But part of your
term.
facilitation process might be purchasing the building, right?
Could be.
Where,
On an
Normal
interim
course of
basis,
What an EDA does, purchasing properties is a part of what they do.
Right.
Being able to buy properties or not be able to buy them doesn't mean that we still can't do our EDA work, just like we have the prospect from the State Development Office. They sent the specs up. We didn't own a building that fit their criteria, but there was a privately owned building out there, so of course, I'm just as happy to bring a company to Warren County that goes in a privately owned building as I am a publicly owned building, because it's still jobs, it's still tax base. It's great if we could get a big whopper in the Ball Drive building or on one of our vacant pieces of ground, but I'm just as tickled to help a private landowner or building owner out as well.
Most EDAs our size do not own that much property directly.
sure.
Most of what they do is what Mr. Parsons was saying, connecting the owner with the prospect.
I guess the freshest example in my mind would have been like, using like the Afton as an example, of it might be a quick transaction of
The
EDA
one
holds it for a
Mr.
period of
Stanley
time
was
before it
talking
goes
about,
on.
yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's what I'm talking about. Will the EDA be back in a position to be able to do that without necessarily having to go out for more obligations from either the town or the county to help those transactions happen, and facilitate those transactions? Does that make sense?
It does, and I think,
I know it's kind of a unique situation. I'm not specifically mentioning the Afton Inn, but that kind of
well,
transaction.
no, that's a perfect example really, because if things would have went right there, that would have been a property that we owned for a short period of time.
Right.
The developer would have been paying the debt service on the construction loan, which would have helped us balance our books on that. And then they would buy the building out at the end ostensibly, and then that comes completely off our books and we go on. We've actually, in the midst of all this, we're still getting interest from a bank to do a construction loan on the Afton Inn if other pieces of the puzzle fall in place.
Mhm.
There's a bank out there that has expressed interest in helping us get the Afton Inn project done, which I was thrilled with, that they were still willing to work with us if the deal's structured properly and they feel they have the security in it. The good news is, we own 149 acres in Happy Creek. We own 50, 60, 76, we own 81 acres in the Stevens Industrial Park, plus there's 13 acres with the Ball Drive building. So we've got a lot to offer right now, and you know, I don't really see us needing to go out and certainly buy anything on speculation, for sure. But again, a deal like the Afton Inn, we're buying it, if the debt service is covered by a developer or some party who's working toward an ultimate goal of owning it or developing it out. You know, I think those opportunities are still on the table.
We have a list of all those properties, I think.
Is there any property left at the Aztecs to be developed?
117 acres of
Okay.
Aztecs, yes, sir.
Okay, so that's,
And by the way, one note on, and this is my mistake, but I just didn't want anyone to get excited. I forgot to change the dates on the schedule of note payments. It says the last payment we made on our loans was July. That's not true. We're current. I just forgot to change the date on these sheets. So if you look at that and you see that, please don't panic.
Like on, and I think y'all talked about this before, like, there's a United Bank loan, you own 6,000 balance, there's one in 16. You start selling a couple of these, get those things cleaned up and start eliminating them. And, you know, town and county, we've got a $6 million loan on Leitron Parkway, we've got 900,000. If we can show this is all legit debt for Leitron Parkway, you know, maybe we come up with like a 5-year amortization schedule to get this thing paid off and off their backs and let's be done with it. I think the sooner we can get to those things and get cleaned up.
And our, absolutely, and our finance committee is going to be working with our accountants. One of the things that we're going to tackle is looking at just what we're looking at right now and the different scenarios that would need to happen or that we can pursue to try to, you know, survive in the medium and long term as it relates to meeting our debt service without having to ask for help.
I'll take, thank you for providing these.
Sure.
I'll take a look, and let you know if I have any more questions related to that before next time.
One quick comment on Apex Conservancy. I mean, we can't sell that property. That has to remain in trust, subject to you equal covenants. So where it says the assessed value is 10 million, you know, that can never be sold or developed. It has to stay in Conservancy. So you might just want to have a footnote there.
Is it still an asset then?
I don't know. I mean, on our books, I guess do they consider? I would think the fair market value would be a lot lower than
I
that.
think they do. How the accountants will treat that on our balance sheet, what value or how they'll assign a value to that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I apologize, I just don't know that.
Can we ask that question for next time? I mean, because I think that's a big chunk of this.
Sure.
But thank you, that's a good point.
quick question on the Kurt Tran. What interest rate is being paid on the Kurt Tran loan?
I'm seeing here 4.35%.
Okay. Oh,
And that's what we pay. So we pay 4.25. What does he pay?
Well, I mean, he's sending in a payment that's
Covering the debt service.
covering the debt service.
Mr. Carson, would you email me the spreadsheet, not at the moment, but when you have time?
Yep.
But he's not paying interest on the debt service?
Oh, no, he's making principal and interest.
Okay, okay.
This is the 43,000 is principal and interest.
That's
Okay.
why it's 9.8, 9.10.
Okay, good enough.
So he's not just paying the interest-only payments.
Oh, no, he's making principal and interest.
So,
So he's paid almost
but isn't
198,000 in principal.
the notes say loan payment amounts represent interest-only payments?
That is for the ones.
The green ones.
The green ones, so.
Oh, that's the key.
Yeah, that's.
I apologize.
Yeah, that's all right. And you'll see there, like the two little dinky loans,
That makes more sense.
those are just interest
Yeah,
only.
got it.
And then our, the police department and Leech Run is interest only. And our line of credit, actually.
To go back to your question earlier, I think Mr. Tran's note is 30 years. Is that
Correct.
correct? So it's a 30-year note, so this 10 million is gonna keep dropping, but it's gonna drop over 30 years.
Hmm.
So it's gonna be a long-term asset and liability on our books.
Okay, anything further on this?
It's great information, thank you.
How about if we go to committees updates?
Okay, committees, we have 4 active committees right now, the executive, the assets, the finance, and the communications. Communications committee's been very active. We've been working to clean up the existing website while planning to develop a whole new website that will have a more user-friendly platform for those that we're trying to reach out to, business CEOs, site selection consultants, brokers, the State Development Office, so that it's easy to get through and get to the information that those folks are looking for. Communications Committee is also producing press releases to send out after our board meetings so that the right information is getting out there to the public and the media. Our Finance Committee has been very active. As I mentioned, we're going to start working on, taking a look out into the future, 6, 12, 18, 24 months, and seeing what our options would look like to remain solvent and be able to service our debt. The Finance Committee is also going to serve as a loan committee to work with new prospects for the USDA loans once we get to that point. Just a little aside, we did meet with the USDA on our loans, and we've got some things we need to get to them, but we feel pretty confident that we're going to be able to start offering at least the IRP loans sometime in the near future. The microloans, I think we need to do a little bit of work there first before us and the USDA will feel comfortable in doing any more microloans. But the USDA, along with our Finance Committee and our entire board, want to develop a very thorough vetting criteria for new loan recipients, and there'll be a lot more due diligence done in the future than there was in the past.
We keep a little list like this that tells us what our committees are doing. And that's my chicken scratching, but I can send you a clean sheet if you'd like, just to see what type of things they're working on.
And our
It's a
assets
very
committee,
engaged committee. The members on this board are new, and we've moved into these committees this summer, and they're becoming very active and going to definitely clean some things, get some things straightened out here.
Sure, if you, actually, if you don't mind, if you wanted to send a copy to Jennifer, we can just keep this as part of the
That'd be
packet.
great.
That'd be great.
I'll send you a clean one, this one's all messed up.
Thank you.
the Assets Committee also has been very active. They review the offers that we get. They've been looking at the properties that we have. We're getting ready to do some tours of our properties for those board members who have not been to, say, the Ball Drive building or 1325 Progress Drive or wherever it may be. So getting up to speed, and our Assets Committee has done a lot of very good work, for trying to get the Afton Inn project back on track.
Right.
So, and they've met with those developers. Fiscal agent transfer, that is pretty well complete. We've been processing our accounts payable and accounts receivable through the county. Payroll. So I think we're in good shape there.
So the county is now fully the fiscal agent.
Quite fully, not quite fully. Isn't there a couple of more transfers we need to make?
So during the transition period, before we fully transitioned, we moved a lot of our money from our old accounts to the new accounts the county established for us. We still have some left in those old accounts, but we're going to work to figure out what the process is with those banks to get those old accounts cleaned out and get all the money over to the new accounts.
So how does that work, Doug? So if payroll and everything is going through the county now for the EDA, is the EDA like a cost center of the county? Whereas before,
They're separated, they're a call center, essentially, a separate fund set up. We do the Skyline Criminal Justice Academy a similar way. So, Doug's deposits from his rents and other monies coming in, they get deposited now in these county accounts. Accounts payable goes to Finance Department. They actually, two board members sign off on the invoices for each one of those. They come over to us, finance reviews them, goes to the board of supervisors, it's on the board agenda next week to pay those. And then the treasurer will cut the check. So I would say multiple layers of opportunity for review by anyone along that process. But it really starts with the EDA board members who have to sign those initial invoices to come over.
So basically, all transactions funnel through the county, and then
And us.
journal entries or ledger transfers or whatever into the EDA cost centers.
Yep.
All right, so
And
when
we're-
invoice comes in, 2 EDA board members sign off on it. Gretchen codes it as to what on
The revenue's booked to the EDA cost center.
Right, either revenue or a payment to the right code within the chart of accounts, which is in concert with the county. So we're keeping our own books for our own use, but yet they're a mirror image of the county's. So then when that bill goes over to the county, it's already been checked over by 2 EDA board members. Then Fred Andre Fletcher, I always get those two mixed up. Andre Fletcher and Ivy look it over. The board of supervisors ultimately sees it, I believe, and then a check is cut. So there's several layers.
So that makes the county fully responsible for all financial transactions of the EDA going forward.
Well, they're signing off their guarantee when they're signing. I mean, you can, from a liability standpoint, you know, they're still responsible.
But it's still gonna be part of your audit.
Now you have a separate audit.
It's gonna be a separate audit.
Yeah,
It'll still be
Yeah,
separate.
just like in Quibbler Justice Academy has a separate audit. It will not be, we're not the same auditor, or it could be the same firm.
I
but
thought it was the
auditor.
same auditor, but a separate document that was a part of your audit.
We've still gotta determine that.
Okay.
So I was trying to understand that because it seems like the move to bring the county in as the fiscal agent would be to ensure that that everything's on the up and up. So the guarantee behind that, or the comfort level for people would be great. It's going through the county. Now we know that the county's going to take responsibility for that. We're assured that it's on the up and up. But it sounds like then
So we had the opportunity to review, Jake, if Ed signs a fraudulent invoice, you're saying is the county going to accept responsibility for the invoice that he fraudulently signed?
the county going to accept the responsibility that, let's just say, the books for the EDA are on the up and up at the end of every audit.
That's the goal.
That's
And the EDA still don't have their same DNO policy. They're not going to get rid of that coverage.
Yeah.
So they'll still have coverage covering the officers in the EDA for anything that they do.
If they did something fraudulent, they would still, the insurance policy would still cover them.
And then they'll still have their separate crime embezzlement policy, all that. They'll still have separate insurance policies.
It's just adding multiple layers.
There'll be 3
Well-
more people, levels looking at every single, where'd your invoice go here? When this invoice, to be able to say, indeed, they will see this and they will be able to say, indeed, yeah, this is a bona fide invoice. As
Legitimate
opposed
signature on
to just one person looking at it and being able to sign it type thing. And there will no longer be that one person can withdraw money from the bank. That type of thing.
I know this
is
might be
gone.
splitting hairs, but maybe I was just trying to make it too simple and say that the reason why that move was done was the assurance that the county now has supervision over the financials of the EDA.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
When you phrased it as we're completely responsible for everything they do, it's a little different than that. But yes, the essence is there's additional layers of
Well, responsible for
review.
Yeah, and I guess what I was saying in that is like if you're as responsible as any one of your employees that could do something fraudulent
Absolutely.
or misbehave that you have no control over.
Correct.
I mean, I guess that's what I was getting at with that to begin with.
That we'll get to that point. Yes.
So I'm powerless over any money. I have no control or none, which is as it should
Oh,
be.
so that, yeah.
He can't, basically, he doesn't write checks, he doesn't have any authority, he can't call anybody, ask for money to be sent.
You can't even sign a contract.
Yeah, he can't sign a contract, so.
Oh, they're just making that sound great for you.
He's just gotta go out and get business.
Yeah,
That's what you
right.
gotta do. Gotta
But
go
that's
get
the way it
business.
should be. That's the way it should be at any
You
EDA.
said it's reviewed, but twice on our side.
Well, you've got finance department that
Right.
reviews it. The board of next Tuesday, you have the board, it has to approve accounts. The board can ask questions, can pull one off and not approve, they've done that
Yeah,
before.
so you're considering the board as a reviewing.
And the treasurer ultimately cuts the check, so
Right.
there's at least, 3 additional steps in there that,
Within the county.
plus your, 4 steps total.
So, okay, that makes sense. That's good.
Time out. Go ahead, thank you.
I'm good.
You done? Okay. Is there any more on the committee?
I think that's it unless there's.
Is there anything else? If not, we'll move on to fiscal agent transfer.
That's done.
That's done. Okay. Item 3, review of draft EDA mission statement.
This is Doug, y'all have developed, this is your new revised,
Is this
Yeah,
new? That's
it's a
our-
draft.
Our board,
It's a
our
draft
board
at this
members
point.
worked on this, and this is something that we've come up with to develop a well-balanced economic development program through recruitment, expansion of existing business and entrepreneurship, which increase commercial tax revenue, provide high-quality job opportunities for residents of Warren County and Front Royal, while balancing both preservation of the surrounding environment and the cost of infrastructure expansion.
So this is our framework that we're thinking of as we're talking about this from our committee standpoint. Draft.
We anticipate that after this committee is done and we know what the roles are going to be, that we will do some more strategic planning at EDA with some help from the town and the county. And we may, at that point, would be proposing to revise this. But this is our draft to work with for the time being.
Thank you for that.
Is that it?
So, yes.
Okay. Okay. Item 4, the review of the property list, total assets versus liabilities, audit
I
results.
think we just covered that, didn't we?
I think we did it,
Yeah.
I ended there.
Yeah, I'll take a look about it. I'd like to be able to look at it, and then if I have any questions, I'll shoot you an email.
Sure.
Anything else on that?
Not unless the group has something there, sir.
Any other questions on that?
Sir.
Okay. Item 5, can the EDA be dissolved or filed for bankruptcy? If so, should it be considered?
Yeah, and I don't think we're gonna be able to answer that, right? I mean, we don't have the audit information.
And the answer is no, it can't be dissolved with outstanding liabilities, and it can't file for bankruptcy. You can file for receivership, but they can't file for bankruptcy.
so the answer on the dissolution is, really, it's yes, but you'd have to refinance about $100 and some million.
If the town and county took all the liabilities, technically that's
And you got the
possible.
hospital and
And the
Christendom
bonds.
to,
The problem is the town and county can't do those bonds. So basically, Valley Health, Christendom, and Royal Arms would all have to find alternative financing for those bonds. So I mean, I guess it's possible, it's just
Impractical.
not very likely, or yeah, it's impractical.
Has it not been done by other E EDAs?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know of any EDAs
Been dissolved?
dissolved, but I mean, I could
Or
research.
filed for bankruptcy?
It's not possible to file bankruptcy. It's not legally possible.
Not legally
A
possible.
political subdivision in Virginia cannot file for bankruptcy. It's not Detroit. You know, you have different rules, and it's just not possible. You can file, the EDA can put itself in receivership, or the creditors could put the EDA in receivership, but they can't file for bankruptcy.
Is receivership different?
It is,
Okay.
yeah,
Can-
it's very different.
Can you explain that a little bit?
I mean, receivership basically, it's to kind of help control all the creditors coming to put liens on, you know, properties and such.
who's in line first or.
Who's in line.
Yeah.
So basically, usually, you know, you would have, you know, still kind of have a trustee type thing, but it's a little bit different. And it's just a different mechanism. There's a little more flexibility than a bankruptcy. It's pretty rare. I don't know if any localities have been placed in, or political subdivisions that have been placed in receivership in Virginia.
Petersburg's probably
Virginia.
come as close as anybody.
Yeah.
That's close when they're not there.
So, I mean, it's a possibility. Creditors can request it, or the EDA can do it themselves, but we can research that more.
So I think it'd be worth it because it was asked from the county and the town. I think that as part of our ultimate, you know, recommendation from this group that, you know, if it's not possible and this is why, that's fine, then we put that in there. But let me just phrase it as somebody who doesn't have your experience, Dan, is if I just said, what if tomorrow we didn't want the EDA anymore here? What would we do? What would be the steps in that process? Can we even do that?
You would have to, yeah, all the holders of those bonds would have to find alternative, and you'd have to look at those bond documents, you know, would be the cost to the EDA of no longer holding those bonds.
So I
would
think,
imagine there's perhaps termination provisions in those bond documents, but you'd have to go to our bond counsel and, and Valley Health's bond counsel and look and see, and Christian's bond counsel look and see how you could dissolve that bond.
And probably like Valley Health, since they prepaid their fee, you'd have to go back and pay back the fee that they paid. And you would forego the fee for Christian and the other bonds as well.
Christian and Royal Arms, you get an annual fee. Valley Health was the one time.
Yeah.
So, and then all the other outstanding debt, I mean, it's possible to refinance that, but you would have to do it through the town, county, or, for instance, IT Federal could, refinance the debt
And
themselves.
I doubt the town would want to take on.
so I think that what that would look like then is if we were to walk away tomorrow, we'd have to go back to the bondholders. This is what would have to happen. We'd have to pay back these fees to, I don't know, tune of $1 million. I don't know what it is, but whatever that dollar is. And I think that the picture that you're painting is that that's unrealistic and would kind of be stupid to do. And if that's the case, then I think that's all this committee has to do. I mean, I think.
Well, and that's really the
that
original
out there.
purpose of an IDA is, for bonds, that type of bond
Mhm.
for a college or hospital, or, we don't have a, redevelopment authority, so housing authority, so we can do it for that kind of housing. So, I mean, it would kind of defeat the purpose of an IDA that we were originally created for back in the 60s. So, I mean, I guess it's possible, I just don't think it's a great idea to go down that path.
Well, if you said that's what I'm saying. You saying now it's possible.
I was saying it's
just not a
possible.
great idea. So I think we
I'm
need to
saying
flesh out what that idea is,
If,
and then
Yeah, I mean, I just think going to 3 different bondholders, I mean, who we gave bonds to, I think it would be very unlikely you could all get them to agree to willingly do it.
yeah. So what I'm not. Let me just be clear. I'm not saying you're wrong
Yeah.
in that. What I'm saying is that we've been asked to ask that
I
question.
mean, if you had one bondholder, maybe. But I'm just saying 3 different bondholders to all agree to because some of those bonds, I mean, Valley Health bond is only 2 years old, 2 years old. Christian's 3 years old. Royal Arms is less than a year old. It's not like now if they were 6, 7 years, and they're probably already thinking about refinancing that bond. Because I think the majority of the bonds usually they are around 10 years, and then they refinance it through
Yeah.
other packages. They're such a young bond, I just don't think it would happen.
I'm not, Dan, I'm saying that you could be right on that, but I think our job is to present the facts, and if it shows that this would be a stupid decision on behalf of this council, then fine, we move forward from that. But I think that is different than saying, no, it's not possible,
Yeah.
versus that would be a smart decision. Does that make
Sure.
sense?
Would it be beneficial from what you're saying to ask for what would be required to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the expert in this, but I think to
Is that what your
Dan's
question,
point
though?
is, number one, you can't file for bankruptcy. That's not a possibility. You could restructure, or you could, if you were to walk away from the EDA tomorrow, this is what would happen. You would have to get 3 major bondholders to take back the debt or whatever. We'd have to pay the fees, and I think based on how Dan's describing it, it paints a picture of nobody in their right mind would want to take this route. And if that's the case, that's fine, and we've done our due diligence and we move on from this. Yeah, and that puts it to rest because clearly we can't make that decision, right? Does that make sense? I think that's what I'm trying to bubble out of this committee as well.
Well, the EDA could always reach out to our bond counsel, get their opinion, because they were the bond counsel on all 3 of those
Okay.
bonds. So reach out to Dan Siegel, and he'd probably have a little more insight than me. He's been doing bond work for 30 years. So
It's not an opinion of whether we should or shouldn't. It would be if you, yeah.
he'd be able to tell you the mechanisms.
Get Kurt trying to pay his money back. Get the hospital, go to another IDA and finance it. Get Christian to go get private financing. Get Royal Arms to go get private financing. There are ways to do it, but I guess what we're saying is it's probably unlikely and impractical that that's going to happen.
It's like checking your parachute before you jump out of the plane in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean. Is what it is. I mean, you can do it, but this is what's gonna happen.
Did you get that?
I'm putting that right
Yeah,
now.
let's go in the minutes. Let's go. All right, thank you.
Okay, are we finished with review of EDA structures and
So the
relationships?
structures, one thing here is simply, I'll make copies. There were copies in the packet, guys. But, Jacob Dodson, who's interning with us, put together a spreadsheet looking at trying to look at, and it's amazing, the Virginia Economic Development Partnership does not have a master list of all the EDAs in the state. We call and ask them, and so Jacob's been, in the electronic version of these links will take you to each EDA. You can actually go in there and click on it. And we're really trying to figure, is it a separate entity, i.e. is it a separate formal entity? Is there a department associated with it? Like Omaha has an economic development department. We asked the question, does your locality attorney serve as your EDA attorney? So some is separate attorneys, some the same. We asked questions on number of employees with the IDA or the department, and if the county is acting as fiscal agent. Of course, if they're a department, more likely than not, because they're part of the county structure. So it was just simply to provide some information on some of these different topics that we've been talking about to see kind of what is the norm in practice. Does legal representation come from the jurisdiction that's the mother organization of the EDA or IDA? So it's there for informational purposes, and I think we're done with it. It can be part of our report.
That fleshes out that, hey, this isn't abnormal, or this is a normal structure, or whatever.
Yeah, or if you want to know how many does this happen, the common practice, so.
I think the plan for our EDA is to not have separate counsel from the county.
Yes.
So moving forward, they'll have separate counsel, and I think that's, fairly normal in Virginia. So I think that'll be good moving forward.
Okay, anything more on that? Okay.
Doug, please send that.
Item 7, development of a well-balanced business recruitment program for the benefit of the town and county. Who wants to run with that one?
That's probably more of a staff project. It's gonna take a little bit of time to do it, and Doug has some things that he wanted to show about how it could be.
Yeah, I brought some stuff. Now, this is on business retention, but I think a lot of the same concepts and philosophies are the same. Business retention is really more important than business recruitment because it's a lot easier to keep what you got and then bring in new jobs to replace those you've lost. This is from the International Economic Development Council's Business Retention and Expansion Program. This course and book right here. There's also one IEDC does for marketing and business attraction. But it gives you a feel for some of the resources that are out there. And I copied these pages. It's a questionnaire for existing businesses, and it's designed to offer a full spectrum of questions to ask a company to help determine if there's any problems or opportunities. And then within this guide also is a comprehensive list of resources to help plug into whatever issues a company may have. There's also an equal amount or even more on the marketing and attraction, and as we get into that, I would suggest that we reference these. And if you look in this book right here, two of the authors of this book are our neighbors. Patrick Barker in Frederick County and Christopher Girdwood used to be with IEDC. He's now in Prince William County.
I thought you were gonna say your name was in there.
No.
Look at the authors.
No, not me.
This might be something to think about having, putting a staff committee and including groups such as the chamber and so forth together to develop something like this.
I'm working with Felicia now. She's been fantastic to work with. I think she's done a lot of great work. Especially with
You're
tourism.
developing kind of your own questionnaire is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think we'll
Okay.
use that, and we won't copy it verbatim and try to use every questionnaire because not all of those things are applicable here in Warren County, but it'll give us a guide.
Maybe bring a draft back to this committee at some point and say, hey, anybody have any suggestions or?
I agree.
Ready for the next one? What role does the town want to play, if any, moving forward?
Yeah, so I actually had just a quick conversation with Doug Stanley here. about this, and I'm gonna take it back to town council. I think my initial thought is that, I probably speak, and I know that Councilman Gillespie's here as well, but I think that there is an interest from town council to want to have a role to play in the EDA again. And then what that looks like, I think we need to talk about it as a council. And then what kind of financial partnership is established as part of that. I have to look at that as well. But I can probably, again, I'm not speaking on behalf of all of council here, but my guess is that before a decision can be made on that, it's gonna come back to, well, before we do that again, what's the financial state of the EDA? What's going on with that? And then the sharing of information, how much of that's gonna be made known to town council. And I think as we start resolving the PD situation, the financing, as we start resolving, some of these properties that are shifting from the EDA, as we start resolving the audits, I think that there's some opportunity to work that out in the future. So my takeaway on this is I will bring that up at our next 1 or 2 town council meetings to be able to come back here and say, yes, we do want to roll, but we're waiting for this, or yes, we do want to roll, and let's start talking about what that would look like and start working it out with you. Does that sound all right? Does that sound reasonable to everybody? It's hard because I'm not speaking on behalf of all council here. I have to.
Yeah, I think, obviously, the town was a sharing participant previously. Y'all had appointments on the EDA board. I think you were more involved at that point in time. I think that was a good thing. And it's just a point of discussion. Is that something that maybe we're going to go back to? I think the only other concept is, does the EDA become a county department? And again, that could affect how you would be involved as well. Or maybe not. Maybe you still, hey, we're going to participate in funding the operational costs. We'll appoint a couple of the members of the board. And, but I think all that in our report, in the final report, should be part of that discussion.
Is the EDA considered a county department now?
No, it's separate entity.
Right. Is that something the county's talking about?
Well, it's something that at one of our large group meetings was talked about, and if you look at this list, it's something that in a lot of jurisdictions is done. But I also realize, technically, we're a regional EDA right now because we're more than one jurisdiction, right, Doug? The way the state defines it. If you're more than the one entity, technically, I think you're regional, but I don't know if there's any advantage to stay in that way or not, but even still, you'd have to have an IDA board to do the official bonds. And it could be an advisory board for, we have lots of, we have a Park and Rec advisory board that advises the Park and Rec department. We have an airport advisory board that gives direction to staff running the airport. You could still structure it that way where you had that kind of oversight and input from the outside. But, I know there's at least one member, Mr. Sayer for me, said I'd like to see it as a county department. I'd like to see more oversight, direct oversight by a government entity.
Right, and so if we're so I think the conversations would go along the lines of if the county wants it as a department of the county. I know we've talked about does the town want to establish their own? And I'm not saying that that's the case
Or
at
you
all.
might
so
say,
that out there,
we want to keep it separate and independent.
maybe.
Yeah.
But I definitely, on a personal note, I definitely have interest on certain projects of, getting pad-ready sites within the town. And I think that I'm not sure how those partnerships work out, between the county and the town and the EDA now, but, or how the priorities align or what we're able to do that way. So I think those are some good discussions for the council to start focusing on, town council to start focusing on. And if the county is looking at a particular direction, then how does that align with what the council's looking for? So with the council, I can do the hypothetical. Let's assume we're able to move past the financial obligations, and we're looking a year or two out from now. What does it look like with the EDA, the county, and the town? Do we want what structure does that look like from the town's perspective? And I can bring feedback next time on that one.
And you can look at them keeping the EDA. If you want to modify it, you can, but keeping the EDA as is, but no direct staff. And the staff becomes county or town department. And every time they pay a bill, it goes through the town or the county, it's right there, and the county administrator signs off on it, and it's just it looks right in your audit. When you open on page 6, it says planning department. On page 7, it says economic development department. On page 3, it says finance department. It functions, and then they are advisory to the EDA itself when the EDA meets for considering activities such as bond issuance and so forth.
So like, there's models where that's done, just like it said. There's models that.
So that's something
we're
that's being
operating.
entertained and discussed now.
Not outside this group, I've heard, like I said, supervisor one-on-one said, is this possible? Yes, it's possible, you know, it's like the.
That's good information.
It's possible. And that's why we really wanted to look at, how many other jurisdictions are doing it this way? You know, is it-
Winchester has an IDA.
Mhm.
The staff person works for the council rather than the IDA. And when the IDA meets.
Works for the county.
No, this is the city of Winchester.
Oh, the city of Winchester Council,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Sean Hirschberg.
Oh, okay.
It works for Eden.
And then when they have a project, he is the advisor to them and comes to their meeting and develops a plan and so forth and brings it forward. But what happened on Tuesday afternoon, that he needs to go do something, he talks to the city manager, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna go do that, etc. So there's no direct employee of the EDA over there.
Okay. Yep.
That's a common number of communities around Virginia and elsewhere, but,
Well, I think as part of this, I think that the town does owe a direction of what they would want to do. Again, perfect world scenario. This is what we're looking at a couple of years from now. This is what we want to do, so we can at least have some direction from here as well, instead of being so hypothetical.
Perhaps by our next meeting, finance committee and our accountants and I can try to have a little clearer picture of what different scenarios would look like. Again, 6-12 months out into the future.
Okay.
If this happens, what kind of shape does that put us in? If these things happen, we're ultimately,
Well, the EDA's intent today is to be here, is to clean up the books. So you already know what your vision is.
Sure.
And so that's why I'm saying the assumptions need to be, let's look out for now. What part do we want to play in that? So we know your vision. Town needs to say, what part do we want to have play in that, and then work with the county to see if that's something that's feasible. I agree to, right? Does that seem?
Yeah.
Again, I'm not trying to overly simplify it, but I think that's where we need to go from there.
That's right. Anything more? I want to ask, was this meeting advertised as a public meeting?
It was.
It was. So if other EDA member would like to speak, would that be permissible?
Does that get into the rules of more than one and all that
Yeah.
stuff?
There's more than one EDA member here tonight.
Did the EDA advertise it as a meeting?
No, I wouldn't think so.
not as one of our meetings, I don't think so.
Then,
no.
since there's more than 2 people, EDA members here, I think that might get a little dicey if you had other EDA members speaking. I think it'd be fine for Mr. Daly if he wanted to have any final comments, but I think if you had other EDA members speak, it
Okay.
could get a little dicey since we didn't advertise it.
Okay, so we'll keep it as without any other EDA members speaking, then it would be the.
But in the future, if the EDA advertises it as a meeting, you could have, a presentation period at the end or the beginning by other EDA
But
members.
easy thing to do would have
speaking.
the EDA rep make whatever comments are needed.
But he's fine, I don't see an issue.
Yeah,
with
Yeah.
yeah, he's part of the committee.
Okay.
One thing on discussion, and
Yeah.
this is Dan's last meeting, and I want to take advantage of him. Obviously, even paper last couple of days was talking about this double draw issue. And I know Jake and I had a quick discussion yesterday. I don't know if it's okay, if y'all want to hear from Dan and try to, I think we ought to get possibly a little explanation. Wait till next week and go on, he's gone, we're not gonna get. So, I don't know whether that's something that y'all want to entertain to have Dan talk about that, or just move on. Ed, I don't know.
The only reason I'm hesitating is if it's gonna offer complete clarification, that might be great, but if it's gonna beg more questions, then we don't have answers for
I think,
today.
when Dan and I had a discussion, I think it gave me clarity, but I'm only one person.
So this is, you're talking clarity to the two draws rather than with the police station per se?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just the two draws. The
There's
draw
two
on
draws.
the-
We
I
said
don't
nothing
wanna
to do
get
with the police station.
the interest rate, all that, no, just
Okay.
the two draw issue.
Okay.
So basically, there was a draw made on January 8th. BJ and I were first made aware of that draw on the 11th. We received, BJ had sent draw requisitions to United Bank, numbers 20 through 25. And United Bank replied back, number 21 has already been paid through the draw on the 8th. That requisition was for $25,000, as well as to Mosley for $12,000 and JTS for $13,000, around there. So we were aware of a $25,000 requisition on the 8th, a draw on the 8th. But it didn't say the draw was $2.7 million. I didn't realize that till Carolyn actually saw there was a draw on the 8th and a draw on the 30th, and she brought it to my attention and to BJ's attention. And I don't think BJ...
On the 20th of January?
No. Carolyn brought it to our attention in April. I have to ask BJ. I mean, it was later when she brought it to our attention. When she started going through the books and she got all the paperwork from United, she realized there had been a draw on the 8th and the draw on the 30th. So she reached out to United. Carolyn reached out to United and said, okay, the draw on the 8th, how did that come about? And she said, well, this was based on all the requisitions. United said this was based on all the requisitions sent in by Jennifer McDonald before her departure. And so basically the draw wasn't requested by BJ, wasn't requested by me. Neither of us even knew about the draw until on the 11th we thought it was $25,000. That's what she said was funded. So we didn't realize till much later that it was for $2.7 million. So we didn't think invoices, requisition 20, 22, 23, 24, 25 had been paid.
So the bank authorized those draws though,
The bank authorized the draw of $2.7 million.
under
on the
Jennifer
8th.
McDonald? Is the
Yes.
person authorizing the draws? Okay.
Yes. According to the bank, it was based on requests made by Jennifer McDonald. Now, the bank said that they emailed me the requisition, draw request, on the 8th. I never got that email. I looked at my computer, searched the person's contact information, and didn't exist. But in their records, they had that was sent to me on the 8th. So
But they never got an approval then?
No.
So if they sent in a draw request email, but never got an approval, but they issued it anyways?
So on the third, so basically BJ was saying, we have all these invoices haven't been paid. We need to pay the contractors. They haven't been paid since Jennifer left. So he had sent, he sent all those invoices to United Bank. United Bank said, BJ doesn't have an authority to make these requests. You need to have a resolution designating your executive director, who was John Anzavino at the time, and your treasurer, Tom Pattison, to make this request. So we did that on the 23rd, passed a resolution. I sent that to United Bank, told United Bank, okay, here's the resolution. Please send me any forms necessary for Tom or John to fill out to make this draw request so we can get these contractors paid. And I believe it was that day or the next day, the 24th, BJ gave me a copy of all the invoices that hadn't been paid. I sent those to United Bank and said, here are all the invoices. Please send me the form that will allow Tom or John to make the draw request so these invoices can be paid. On the 30th, draw came in, 1.1 million, a little under 1.1 million. That email came to myself and BJ from Laurie Mitchell. What we came to realize is that Tom and John never made the request, never signed anything. I didn't have the authority to make draw requests. Basically, United said you have to have a resolution, and the EDA designated either Tom or John to make it. So now we're basically, asking United, okay, if there's no one from the EDA who had authority to make the draw request, how did you process the request? How did the money, come in? So that's the question, I guess. There is an open question, which is for United. Why did you process draw request when there wasn't any, because you would, in the
And
past.
then all the dollar amounts reconcile, so we can account for every single dollar draw request where it went.
So basically, the 2.7 million went into the EDA operating account.
Mhm.
What the EDA did, instead of sending the money back, they continued to pay future requisitions for the police department out of that excess draw. But Carolyn is not charging interest until the town invoice was actually paid. So when requisition 26 came in, for instance, she wouldn't charge interest until that invoice actually came in and was paid. So right now, there's still $345,000 left in the EDA account from that excess draw on
So
January 8th.
Is that why the EDA has cash in its account, because it has an excess draw that it?
There's
shouldn't have?
345,000,
Out of 1.8
Excess.
million.
Piece.
yes.
That's
Yeah.
part of it.
So 345,000 is actually from that police department loan. That's being-
Out of the 2 million, it's dwindled down to 345,000.
According to Carolyn, yes, according to our accountants and financial staff.
So regardless of when we drew down those chunks of money, and regardless of the interest we're paying on that, we're only charging the town interest from each individual draw from the date of execution of payment. That's when the interest kicks in. So if it's a payment of $56,000 on April 22nd, then the interest for that payment starts there and comes down.
Why wouldn't the EDA just put back that money instead of paying interest on it?
We have asked that question.
We could do that, and that would probably save us some interest. There's $550 of administration fees and inspection fees every time you take a draw out of United Bank.
So if you nickel and dime and do a bunch of draws, you're paying,
No, I understand how it
Bunch of
works,
those
but I mean,
things.
like,
But
so
then
there's a
also-
couple things that, I mean, so that explains like, there's some additional cash in the EDA, you're paying interest on it. And what I'm hearing you say, Dan, is that, yeah, United's bank is in a bit of trouble because they issued a crap ton of money with no authorization.
Without ours.
And site inspections or anything else on what the requisitions were for?
I believe they did have a inspector go out there, and I believe BJ did have to provide lien waivers as well before they issued the draw on the $1.1 million draw. But they did have a site inspector go out there and inspect the site.
So what's the next steps with United Bank?
I think the EDA needs to probably reach out to them and ask, how did this authorization come about when the county
you
attorney's
don't have a
not.
signed requisition and you have no authority to
I
request money.
want to
Yeah.
be glad to talk to you about it privately.
Okay, alright. Alright,
Is that helpful?
yeah.
Okay.
But it doesn't change any of the amounts of the police station.
Right, it doesn't.
No, the amounts are all accounted for.
It's
The
all
amount,
accounted
it's all there, it all went to the EDA operating, and we just continued to pay requisitions after that amount, after that money was
We're not
deposited.
charging the town on all the interest from.
Yeah, I wanna do the math, and if I have any more questions about it, I'll let you know.
Okay. Is there anything more? If not, how about the next meeting and the topics?
2 weeks.
Well, how long will it take to talk about number 8 here, do you think?
Yeah, I think,
Number 8?
about. What about the first week of October? We don't have, it's a fifth, Monday for us, we don't have council on Monday. Or, really what I was going for is a couple council meetings, so latter part of.
I know the
The
mayor,
25th.
the mayor wants, a report. 25th of which month?
September?
5th of October.
I can do I can skip a council meeting, come here, no, I'm just kidding, 23rd, or 24th, 25th.
I won't be here, but you're all welcome to do it.
Evening of the 25th, if we could stay away from that, I've got something. It's not.
On the 24th.
24th, I'm wide open. I got a pre-bid meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Do the 24th. March 24th.
Mr. Dale?
So are you saying next week?
September 25th.
Oh,
2 weeks.
September. Okay.
yeah, that's a couple weeks.
24th.
That's a couple council meetings.
September 24th. Okay.
24th.
24th.
All right.
Does that work? Thank you very much.
Mrs. Neighbor, does this work for you?
I won't be here this week, but,
The week of the 24th?
no, I won't be here.
Oh, you won't be in that.
No, that's-
Mr. Whitten, I doubt if you'll be here with us.
No, I guess you'll have the new interim county attorney will be here.
You don't want to come back?
I might have a meeting that night now.
Yeah,
Your house closing schedule that day.
Is there anything else? We're adjourned.
Thank you.